Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be another tag video. So this is the palette tag 5000. I don't really know where the 5000 comes from, but I've seen a few people do this lately, including I think Glitter Fallout was the last person I saw do it, and when I decided, yes, I'm going to do this one too. Looks like a lot of fun, and I'm excited to do this. It was a little hard to pick some of these because I was like torn between two, or I just didn't really know what to answer. So that's always fun and a bit of a challenge. And if you're new here, my name is Colin. I'm a non-binary Latinx scientist and lover of makeup with a definite soft spot for indie makeup and high-end makeup, and you'll see both of those today. And I tend to take a pretty analytical approach to my content, my makeup collection as a whole, and I have new videos every week, be it reviewing something or just trying things that I already know and love and using them again on camera. So if that sounds good to you, I'd love to have you subscribe, and let's get into this. Okay, so like I said, I've seen a few people do this. Glitter Fallout was the last one. I really enjoyed her. She even did some extra questions. I don't think I have those in here, but those were fun. She seems like a really great person. I don't know her personally, but she just, her name is Linda. She seems like the kind of person I could be friends with, you know? Some of these I don't know if I really have a great answer for, so it was a bit of a challenge, which is kind of fun, because I came into makeup and the makeup community kind of late. I wore makeup a little bit in high school, off and on, like a few times, but really started, you know, in 2019. So and then I hit the YouTube makeup community well after a lot of the big craziness happened. So my answers are gonna be a little bit different than some of the other people who are making these videos. And if you're curious about my makeup, I did film this video. This look is part of a video I did on the new Natasha Denona I Need a New Palette. I keep saying I need a new palette, which I do not. It is I need a nude. I did a very in-depth video of this. So I did two looks, the one I'm wearing and another one off camera that I showed pictures of. And then I did swatches on my Olive Undertone. I did swatch comparisons to all of her other MIDI palettes. I did comparisons to a lot of other shadows. So it's a very long video that'll probably go up before this. So would greatly appreciate watching that because it took a lot of work, but this is the palette that I'm wearing. I'm wearing one of the new Wet Effect shadows on my lid. Really happy with this. And then I've got my Surratt foundation on, House Labs. This is the Sepia Lip Shine on my lips, because I've been wearing the Lisa Eldridge lip gloss a lot and I wanted something different. And then I'm wearing the shade Sheen from this palette as highlighter, and really loving that. It's a great highlighter. And then the rest of my face, the glow that you're seeing, is one that I've been wearing this makeup for hours. And also I used the new Glaze Skin Melt Powder. I got this at Nordstrom recently because they're the only place that has it in person, and really intrigued by this. You can wear this like by itself, but it is very glowy. But I do think it gives a nice glow to the face. I'm still on the fence on if I think it's too glowy or not. But we'll see. I'd love your opinions. Okay, so let's get into the tag. So the first question is a palette that you wore on a special occasion. And I've seen a lot of people mention like their wedding or something. Linda mentioned going on the trip where she met a bunch of other content creators, and I think that was a great response to that. I started wearing makeup regularly and earnestly during the COVID lockdown, so I didn't really have a lot of special occasions to wear things to. So when I was trying to think of special events or things that I've done in the last 3-ish years, the things that came to mind were things like when I got to meet Michelle Branch, big highlight, but I wasn't wearing an eyeshadow palette. I was wearing the Melt eyeliner and one of, from the video I just filmed, I have a stack of palettes there. I wore Lithium from Urban Decay all over my lid for that, you know, smoky wet effect. So I wasn't wearing a palette for that. There's been a bunch of like, I got to meet Jinx Monsoon, but I was wearing a Sarah Moon single. I wasn't wearing a palette. But when I recently got to meet Jimbo, which I have my Jimbo fan somewhere here, actually, I'm kind of warm, so I am glad I remembered to grab this. When I got to meet Jimbo, I was wearing an eyeshadow palette, and that was the Isomea Industrial 2 palette. I met Jimbo right after this came out, so I've been using it a lot since I got it, but you know, it was right after it came out, so I was wearing this. I was wearing like just a couple of the shades from this because they're all shimmers, and I just wanted a brightening, sparkly look. But I was wearing this, and that is the closest thing to a special event that I could think of. There haven't been any big things. Yeah, so the meeting Jimbo right after they won Drag Race All-Stars, that is my special event. And I was wearing Isomea. Okay, so the next one is a palette you love, but it's repetitive. And I wasn't sure if this implied repetitive in your collection, like you have a lot of it, or repetitive on itself. So I decided to go, because being autistic, I overthink everything. Also being, you know, a scientist. So I went with repetitive in my collection. So I went with something where the colors aren't necessarily unique to my collection, but it's something I love a lot anyway. And I had to go with the Byredo Flora Kalahari palette. Of course, I'm picking really expensive, shiny palettes to start, but I adore this palette so much. I wear it a lot in the summer and fall since I got it I got this for my birthday last year. It was my birthday present to myself. I was in LA for my birthday because we have friends there and go down regularly. And one of them lived 5 minutes from one of their boutiques. And I went in to just like look at stuff, and they had it. And I was like, oh, you actually have this? It's been sold out online everywhere for months. And she was like, yeah, we have like 3 of them. And I swatched it and bought it immediately. But I love it. But it's, you know, earthy. I love earthy palettes, earthy color schemes, earthy tones. So you've got, you know, warm, earthy brown mattes. You've got an orange. You've got a taupe. You've got some coppers. You've got this really beautiful green. You've got a gold. It's very much colors that I could pull from other things, but it's such a refined formula. It's a really beautiful palette. I love it as a thing together. So definitely did not need color story wise, but needed for me. The next one is a palette that you've got your money's worth on. So this one was hard. I use a lot of my palettes like there's, you know, I would say there's a core set that I use all the time, and then there's like peripheral ones. I'm definitely trying to narrow down the peripheral ones. But things that I thought of 2 things. One is a palette that I've definitely got my money's worth was the original House Labs Glam Room palettes. This is when they were on Amazon. The quality of this is still pretty good. I think this was my first branch away from drugstore makeup. I had never spent more than like a ColourPop, like $20 on a palette, and this was like $35 or something. And I was like, oh no, it's $35, and now look at me. But, oh, the difference 2 years can make. But I love Lady Gaga. She is one of my favorite artists, both musically and personally. She just as a person, the charity work she does, she seems like a great person. She also feels like someone that I would like to party with. But that's another thing. But this was her first palette, and a lot of people said it was really boring. I thought it was pretty, and I was also, you know, just starting in makeup, and she said this was to represent her starting in makeup from when she first started wearing makeup. And I really like this, and multiple of these have big dips, so you can really see it in this maybe not. In this matte shade, there's a huge dip, like almost pan in the you know, medium brown. There's a big dip in the dark brown. There's a big dip in the duochrome, which is a gold peach duochrome. This dark brown shimmer has a decent dip in it. This is a really nice matte black. The red was fine, and these purples are like fine. But the rest of it, really nice. And I've used it recently and it still works well. But I used this so much, and it was kind of my gateway into non-drugstore makeup, because I was like, wow, this works really well. What is other more expensive makeup like? So I definitely got my money's worth, because it's still around, still love it. And I've used it a lot. I have the biggest dips in this. The second thing I thought of was the Isamaya Wildstar palette, and this was what got my money's worth for a different reason. So this, because I go to LA regularly to see friends, Isamaya, when this was launching, they launched it, they announced it, but it was a pre-order, and it was gonna be 3 months before it was actually released to the world. It was gonna be around Christmas. And this was back in like, around my birthday, like October, September, that they announced it. And they had a surprise 2-day pop-up in LA where you could go and meet Isamaya and her team, and they would do your makeup and you sell your stuff. And I had just been there like a couple weeks before, so I couldn't fly back down. But one of our friends, I texted and I was like, hey, can you go pick this up for me? I was like, I want the palette and this lipstick. And he ended up buying the whole set, which was more than I asked for and more money than I planned on spending, but it was fine. But I got my money's worth because I was the only one that did that. I was literally the only person with a video on this on YouTube for like 2 months. And so I never made my money back on that video because I'm a smaller channel and I just don't earn that much. But I think, you know, I spent $100 on the palette, and I think I've made $20 or $30 on that video or something. So like, I've used it a lot myself, and I've made more back on it than other things because I was the only one with a video on it. So I think that had to be mentioned too. Okay, everything is chaos right now. Because I filmed the big swatch comparison for Natasha Denona, and now this, and I have other things that I wanted to film after this. Who knows if that's gonna happen. Because the lighting is going away. So the next one is a palette that's an amazing deal. So I don't know. I think this is meant to be like a palette that's a great price, or an amazing deal to get, but that's so subjective. What is an amazing deal is for you. So someone might think getting $100 palette for $80 is an amazing deal, but someone else might be like, that's ridiculous, I would never spend $80 on a palette. So it's too subjective. So I thought of this as a palette that I got an amazing deal on. That's how I'm interpreting this question. And that has to be Pat McGrath, Mothership 3 Subversive, because I spent $47 on this, including tax. This is normally $129, but there was a sale. I was actually teaching a class while I was teaching, they were taking an exam, so I could, look at my phone. I wasn't lecturing, but there was a sale going, and then my friend Jamila, who's on YouTube, I'll link her channel, she texted me that there was the sale, and then there was like one of the coupon codes for another 20% off or something was weirdly working on top of it, and it shouldn't, and they were probably gonna catch it. So if you're gonna order something, order it now. And I got on my phone and immediately bought this. And so it was marked down, there was a sale, and then I got a code on top of it. So it was like $45 plus shipping or plus tax. So I spent like 47 something. And I love this palette. I have most of her motherships. I love these. I haven't paid full price for really any of them. I think the last two, Moonlit Seduction and Sunlit Seduction, I did buy at launch and pay full price, but I had a Sephora reward, so I only spent $30. And then other ones, another one I spent $100 on, but most of them I spent less than $100 on. But this is the one I got the best deal on. Love, love, love this palette. I do think it's interesting. People are always saying they want Pat McGrath to go back to fun color stories like this, but when she does these, they don't sell very well. And then the ones that actually do the numbers are her pinky neutrals. that's for a different video, but I love this. Gigabyte, love this shade. Really, really love this blue purple duochrome. Blue is my favorite color. I think it really pops. I love greens because I'm an olive, and I think blue really pops against my olive undertone. One of my favorite looks is just put Gigabyte on the lid and then blend the edges with this dark brown. And if you were very light with it and use a good brush, works perfect. Night Creature, really beautiful purple. I just think this is a really fun palette, and I'm very happy that I spent less than $50 on it. Okay, so the next question is quad that you love and wish was a larger palette. I don't have a lot of quads. I actually only own 2 quads. I have a few quints, but I only own 2 quads. So this was pretty easy for me, and it is gonna go to Pat McGrath. This is the Celestial Divinity Quad, an Interstellar Icon. Because it's similar veins to Subversive, but different. So it's got Blue Blood, which is also in Decadence. It's got this really beautiful taupe, like, this is such a good taupey brown one and done shade. It's not swatching very well, but it's brown but sparkly, and there's a bit of a gold sheen. It's got another blue, but a different blue, a brighter blue. But it's also duochrome, but it's a different formula. It's not the big shade, and it's a little, I don't know, it's a little more shifty. And then it's got a really pretty champagne. I think this could be a 6-pan palette or a mothership. Like a Subversive 2. She's done Divine Rose 2. I think she could make this Subversive 2, and I think it would be really cool. Okay, so the next one is love the quality of the shadows, but hate the packaging. There's not many things that I hate the packaging of. And this, I wouldn't say I hate the packaging of. I love the packaging aesthetics and design. I just think it's too bulky. And that is the Kaleidos Club Nebula palette. I adore the blue. I adore the pattern here. I love this palette. Love the color story. Love the quality of the shadows. This is what really pushed me full into indie. Like, I started from buying Lethal, and I bought a bunch of Lethal stuff, and then I tried this, and I was like, okay, I'm sold. Really, really love this. It's just really bulky. Like, you can see the shadows are just in this little part here, and then there's all of this, and then there's a mirror, but it's in, like, there's just a lot. Like, it's, you know, way thicker than this Byredo. If I pulled it up to a Natasha Denona, it's twice the size of a Natasha Denona, so I wish it was a little less bulky. I'm sure they have the reasons for that. They haven't made a palette like this since then. Escape Pod is the same. I have it too. I really love it, but again, the packaging's bulky, so I wish it was a little more sleek. That's really it. I couldn't think of anything else that I hate the packaging of. Okay, so the next question is show your dream palette and singles. So I don't have the biggest singles collection. Here is my singles collection. So I've got this large Terra Moons palette that is full of Terra Moon shades. I've got this Divina palette that is 2/3 full, half full. I've got this palette of all, it's a ColourPop palette, but it's all Lethal shades. I've got some random ones in here. And then I've got these little ones full of like specific sets, but that's it. I don't have the biggest singles collection, but I was able to put this together pretty easily. I wouldn't say this one was hard, because Dream Palette is hard. I have multiple Dream Palettes depending on the season and the mood and the theme. Like, I have a lot of palette ideas in my head, slash drawn out. But so I wanted to pick like a perfect me palette, especially for me going into this end of summer, fall stage, like my go-to colors. And so I made this. I limited myself to this size. Could have easily made it too big. So I've got these shades here are from Sigil inspired by Tammy Tanuka, who you can't buy from. anymore because they're Russian. But you've got a nice neutral brown. It's a really good transition shade for me. It's a little bit mustard. It's a little warm, but in the yellow tone, like a little golden. This really beautiful bronze metallic. Really love their metallic formula. It's on par with Pat McGrath's metallics. This is like a really pretty antique gold bronze. That's a little shifty. And then I've got an olive tone matte from Lethal if I want to go a little more green. A dark matte from Lethal to deepen it out. I've got blues because blue is my favorite color, and I just love the way blue pops against my skin tone. And then I've got a Divina shade and 3 Terramoon shades here. So this is Fairy Fire from Divina, and it's probably my favorite. It's an iridescent multi-chrome, and you can see how shiny it is. It's so pretty. And then I've got Phoenix from Terramoons here. Again, intensely shiny. And then this is Inertia, which I love the color. It's a good fall one. It's like green, gold, bronze, all of the like my go-to fall colors in one. There's a little bit of a beige to it. Plus, as someone that works in biomechanics and therefore physics, Inertia is just like the name makes me happy. And then I don't remember this one. This is Gamma Ray, which is another one of those. It looks just like gold there, but it's got orange and green in it too. And I just had to include these. There's Fairy Fire. You can see why I love that. If I look at it here, I see purple and blue, and then it's reflecting orange and green. It's so pretty. And then Phoenix, it looks white, but then it's got that strong gold green, and there's like other shifts. And then we've got Inertia and Gamma Ray. Inertia is one of my most used. That's what I think what I wore when I met Jinx. So pretty. And then still have a lot on my fingers. And then here's that Tammy Tunica one. So you can see it looks brown, bronze if I hold it this way without the light hitting, and then it looks gold when the light hits it. And it's just so smooth and creamy. So that is my kind of perfect Colin palette, capsule palette with my singles. And I'm excited to I'm gonna keep these in here. I normally like to keep them in their place with their other, like it's hard for me to not have them in their categories and their sets because I'm that kind of person. It stresses me out when there's like mixed shapes and sizes, but I'm gonna leave them like this for a while and use this because I like this little color story build. Okay, and so the next question is palettes you like to combine together. This was hard. I like to use my Viseart palettes together a lot. I have my blends palette from Blend Buddy that I don't use very often because it's a rainbow palette, and I use that with things. My first thought was my palette of Lethal Mattes and my palette of Terramoon Shimmers, but because I was making this, I didn't want to use that. So my second thought was Decadence, which I got recently and is all metallic shades, and Subliminal from Pat McGrath. So Decadence, if you don't know, is all special shades from Pat McGrath. It's really beautiful. I really love it. Trying to open it. My Decadence, it opens differently than my other Pat palettes. So the rest have that like bifold. This, for some reason, has the bifold printed on it. I don't understand. But it just slides out. So this is all shimmer. This is technically discontinued, but it was back on the website one day and it said in limited quantities. And I was like, I'm buying it. I don't care. It was gone. I emailed them months ago and they were like, it's never coming back. And I had 20% off and I was like, I'm just doing it. Love this. A lot of these you can use as one and dones. Like this shade, this shade, this shade, this shade. This is Blue Blood again. You can use a lot of these as one and dones. The blues, this is a really beautiful deep blue, a little more satin. But if I want, especially going into fall and winter, when I'm gonna wanna wear these a lot, if I want mattes to go with it, I want something neutral and basic that's gonna go with all of these. And so I went with Subliminal because it's my second favorite Pat McGrath pat, like kind of tied for first. But you've got neutral taupe, slightly darker, charcoaly shade, and then a black, and then a nice, neutral champagne. So if I don't want to blend the edges of one of these, I have these very neutral taupey mattes that I can use to blend them out with, or as the structure. So I can get a nice structure with this and then do this. I thought about my favorite, which is Midnight Sun, because it also has Taboo, which is my perfect, my skin tone transition. But it's a little warmer than most of Decadence, and I'd want something more neutral to go with all of Decadence. Okay, the next question is a large palette that you wish was smaller. I don't really have any big palettes because I don't buy them. I don't like big palettes. So that was hard. Like if I had the Antidote palette, the Be Perfect, I think, Antidote palette, I really wanted that one, but it was too big. So in theory, because I loved the color story, it just needed to be curated down more. So what I went with was Metropolis Penitential Denona. I adore this palette. It's not maybe my favorite. It's up there. It has been my favorite, but it might be dethroned this year. Really, really love this. It's 28 shades. They're the midi size, so they're interchangeable with all of these size palettes, which is really lovely. But it could be curated more. It is a little bit repetitive. You've got a lot of golds, and there is nuance between all of them. There is nuance between these warm tones and oranges, but it could be curated down more and still have the essence of the palette, and could have been, a 15 pan mini or something. So that's what I went with, because I love it as is, but it could be curated better and culled down a little. She really was these are vaguely different, throw them in there, which she does a lot, but that one has a lot. And a lot of people say that they look identical to them. I see the nuance between them and they don't look identical to me or on me, but they're pretty close. So I think it could be smaller / less shades. The next question is an eyeshadow palette you wish was a face palette. I don't like face palettes. I, in general, want individual shades or duos or something, because generally face palettes have 4, 6, 8 shades, and there's always some that I'm never going to use. I have a few face palettes, and each one has shades I've maybe used once, too light for me, you can't be inclusive. I don't really wear pink blush very often. Just doesn't, people say it looks nice on my skin tone, I just don't like it that much. I want more beige to orange, coral, terracotta, something like that. And there's too many undertones and skin tones and stuff to really be inclusive in one palette. But if I had to pick a palette that I have that has really pretty color story that I think would make a nice companion palette as blushes and highlighters, because bronzer is never going to be, there's too many variables for bronzer. I went with my other Byredo palette. This is the Remembrance palette. Really love this. Have a video on this as well. This is very neutral. It's got some cool tones. It's got some cool pinks up here, some rosy tones. It's got orange and some warm browns and some neutral brown, rosy brown. You've got some pinky shades that are more highlightery. You've got copper and some warm tones. So I think this could be made into a face palette where you have a rosy blush, maybe 3 shades, a light rosy blush, a dark rosy blush, a rosy highlight, and then a warm coral section of light, dark, and then like kind of a golden champagne highlight. I think that would be really cool and would still fit with the vibe of this palette. So that is my answer. The next question is an OG palette, an OG YouTube palette that you still have. I don't have any. I wasn't around for things like when everybody lost their shit over the Jaclyn Hill palette with Morphe or ABH, Modern Renaissance, or any of those. I wasn't around for any of that. I'm actually happy I wasn't around for any of that. So I don't have any. I did buy the Jackie Aina palette, which I think is kind of the tail end of that. And I liked it for a while, but within a year, it was like patchy and lost all its pigment and did not work anymore. So I decluttered that. Like it got really bad really quickly. So I don't know if it just was old when I bought it. But yeah, I don't have any. And I kind of wanted Subculture, but I have other things that are kind of vaguely similar that I like more. I think it'd be interesting if ABH in their new format and their new color, their new formula, if they revamped some of those, that would be kind of cool. Like a modern Subculture in their new formula. I might buy that. But yeah, I wasn't around for any of that. Any of that drama, any of that hype, any of that chaos. And I'm not someone that like joins the chaos or the hype or the FOMO. So happy I wasn't here for that. But yeah, I don't have any. But if you're watching this and you still do, I'd love to know what ones people still have, because I've gone back and watched stuff and like learned about that side of YouTube and that part of YouTube, beauty YouTube history, and watched some of those old videos and stuff. So I would love to know what people still have. So if you have anything, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to know. As an anthropologist, I love that kind of stuff. The next question is a palette that has survived declutters. And that, I have a few. Basically, I have a handful of ColourPop stuff that have survived declutters, like the Hocus Pocus palette or the Sailor Moon palette, which I haven't used them in. I tried using them last year and decided to keep them, but I haven't used them since then. So I feel like I need to declutter them at this point, or just set them aside and somewhere else where it's like the packaging is cute, nostalgia, but don't want to use. But the other one that I thought of is the Beauty Bay Nikki Tutorials palette. I don't really like the Beauty Bay formula. This has come in handy a few times, like before I got the blends palette, when I wanted to do a rainbow palette, or a rainbow look, this came in handy. And I love Nikki Tutorials. I think she's a really great person. I think she does a lot for the queer community now. I hate how she had to come out. I got to meet her randomly. We were at the same drag show in New York. Because if you're new here, I lived in New York for years. And so I go back periodically. I've only gone back a couple times since COVID started. But I moved to Seattle for my PhD. I was randomly with some friends at a bar to watch a drag show. Not a drag show where I know the queens. I do know some of the New York queens, but it wasn't one of those. But she was randomly there. It was after the Met Gala, so she still had all her Met Gala makeup on. And I went up to her very drunk and was like, hey, I'm sure this is annoying, but I just have to say I really love you and wanted to say hi. And she was like, no, you're not annoying. She was really sweet. And she was like, do you want a picture? And I was like, yes, that would be great. And we talked for a couple minutes. She was really sweet. She was with her friends. And we talked about the drag queens and how we were loving the show and which part we loved the most and stuff. And then I ended up getting pulled on stage at one point. That's a different story. And she looked, I'm just rambling at this point, I'm sorry. She looked just as good in person as she does in pictures. Like, I've seen people with like heavy full coverage makeup, that like glam makeup in person, and that looks cakey and gross. It looks unflattering. She looked perfect. I don't know how she did it, but that's why I have trouble getting rid of this. I don't ever use this. I do like some of the shimmers in here. They're really pretty, but I have similar shades in formulas I like more now. I don't like this packaging, so this could also be packaging I hate, but I don't love the formula, so it doesn't work for that. This is a really interesting true green, so it's kind of nice to have that. And on my skin, it pulls like perfectly true green, not too yellow, not too blue. Yeah, I don't use this ever, and I feel like I should get rid of it because I don't love the formula. I don't love using it, and so I never do. But I really like Nikki, and especially after meeting her last year, I just feel like I can't. So it just kind of sits in the corner of my collection. We'll see what happens in December when I do my declutter. The next question is a palette you regret buying, and I don't really have one that I regret. I don't have anything that I regret buying. There are things that I don't use. I could say there's a BH palette that I bought to see if I liked the formula more, and I didn't like it, and so I just never used it. There are things that I regret buying and not using enough, there's things that I don't really regret buying any makeup. I regret not using certain things enough, but even things that I don't like, I don't really regret because they were a learning experience. They helped me learn what I like, what I don't like, what formulas and brands I like and don't like, what colors I like and don't like. And I haven't spent a lot of money. Like I haven't paid like $100 on something that I don't like and regret. And if I did, I'd probably return it. So I don't really have anything that I regret. I feel like everything has a reason and is a learning experience, and that might be the academic in me. But yeah, I don't really have anything that I regret. There are things that I don't use and I don't really like anymore, but I don't regret having them. And then the very last question is a palette that deserves more love. And that has to go to my Pat McGrath, a lot of Pat McGrath in this video. Is this Divinity? Yeah, Celestial Divinity, then it was Odyssey, then it was Nirvana. This I didn't buy when it came out originally, but then when it came back, I got this as a gift from a friend. And I've used it a handful of times, but not enough. I don't love the mattes in here, not because they perform badly, but just because of the colors. So there's 3 mattes. There's a mauvey pink, a plummy darker pink, and a warm brown. And so that's why I haven't grabbed it as much, but I have used it maybe like 10 times or something, where I've grabbed a shimmer, and the shimmers in this are beautiful, and I just need to use it more. And one of my goals for this fall and winter is to use this more, like grab random mattes from something else, grab Viseart mattes, grab something, and throw those in, even bronzer. And I have done that, I've used bronzer. But grab some mattes and then use this as if it was a collection of singles. Kind of like I'll put mattes in my eye and then use a Terramone or Divina single or something. I think this deserves more love in my collection. Backtrack. I just thought of something I kind of regret buying, and it is the Dragon Fruit palette from Cliona. I'm not gonna grab it now. I don't regret it because it was a learning experience, but I don't think it was worth the money. The packaging is shitty, and almost every YouTuber, even ones that are like get PR from Cliona, it's broken on them. I don't think the shades were all that special and worth the money. And so I do kind of regret that, but also I don't, because it was a learning experience still, so I still stand by what I said. But if anything was a regret, because that was expensive, couldn't return it, don't use it enough. It's almost all satin shades, which I like satins, but I don't want like bright pink or bright purple or lime green satins. So like, it's just like, it's a sore spot in my collection. I can't get rid of it, and there are a couple shades in it that are pretty, but like not worth the money. Crappy packaging. It has meant that I have not tried anything else from the brand, even though everyone loves them, and I do want to try some of the stained glass collection, but that palette burned me. So that's maybe a regret. Okay, that's it for this tag. I talked longer than I thought I would. Don't think I'm going to be filming anything else today. Losing the light and I need to eat dinner. But I hope you enjoyed this. I'd love to know, especially if you have a YouTube channel, I would love to know your thoughts. I would love to see you do this tag. If you don't have a YouTube channel, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If there's any of these questions that really jumped out at you, I'd love to know your responses to them, especially like the OG YouTube palette one. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video.